All right, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes, good to go.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Coalition of Skin Diseases Member Empowerment webinar series. We are very excited to have a wonderful panel with us today. Our webinar today is Maximizing Your Nonprofit Social Media Impact. And this session is going to equip you with practical strategies, real-world examples, and innovative tools to elevate your organization's social media presence in the skin space. And I am Natalie Mamro. I am the CSD's communications manager. And I think with that, we will get started. If anyone has any questions, you can add them into the chat. And at the end, we will have a question and answer section. So hold your questions to the end or put them in the chat and we will get back to them at the end. And so with that, I will hand it over to our first panelist is Colleen Kmiecik. She's the Director of Marketing and Communications at the Autoimmune Association.
Thanks, Natalie. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm really glad to be with all of you today, and I'm glad to see so much enthusiasm for social media. So I know it can be really overwhelming, but social media is actually one of the most powerful and affordable tools that, as a nonprofit, you have right now. So I'm just going to walk you through why it matters. I'm going to give you an overview of social media and, you're figuring out who your audience is, what platforms to use, how to think about it strategically, and I'll provide some simple ways that you can make it work for you and your organization without burning out. Next slide. So first, why does social media matter? The short answer is because that's where your audience is already. Social media isn't this extra thing anymore. People spend hours every day scrolling on their phones. And if you're not showing up there, you're missing out on a huge chance to connect with the people who really care about your cause. And I'm assuming we're all patient advocacy groups here, especially the social media is kind of a game changer. It lets you connect directly with your audience, your patients, your caregivers, your donors. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It can actually be extremely inexpensive. So you don't need that huge ad campaign or big marketing budget. And the best part is it's really personal. You can share patient stories, you can share patients' journeys, or why a volunteer got involved, or why a donor feels so passionate about this. And these stories show the human side, unlike a press release never can. And it's not just about awareness. Social media can actually drive fundraising. It can bring people into your advocacy campaigns, and it can even help you recruit volunteers. So like I said, it's low cost, but if you use it intentionally and strategically, it can be extremely high impact. So that's the why. And now I'll move into the how. How do we use social media? Next slide. Before you post anything, it really helps to sit down and consider a few questions. The first is, who are you actually talking to? Who are you trying to reach through your social media? Are you trying to reach patients? Are you trying to reach caregivers? Are you trying to reach your donors? Or maybe it's even healthcare professionals. So knowing that is your baseline really helps you frame the messages and the content that you post. So then you need to consider, where are they? Meaning, what platforms are they on? And you don't need to be everywhere. We know that there are a lot of platforms, there's new ones popping up all the time, but you don't have to be on all of them. You just need to figure out where your audience is and which platforms they're using. So if they're on Facebook or Instagram, start there. It's way better to use one or two platforms really, really well than to spread yourself too thin and try to use all of them and not be successful on any of them. So the third thing you should consider is, what is the goal? of your social media campaign? Are you trying to build awareness? Are you trying to get engagement? Are you trying to promote an event or a campaign? Are you trying to get donations? Again, having this clarity makes your content more focused. And finally, you want to consider who's posting and monitoring. This could be a staff person. If you're a small organization, it might be, maybe it's a board member. It could be a volunteer, but you really need to establish clear roles to avoid things slipping through the cracks. So now that you have determined who your audience is, where they are, what your goals are, the next really big question is how do you do it, right? So let's talk about all of the different platforms. As I mentioned, next slide, please. As I mentioned, there are a lot of platforms out there. I have kind of the big ones up here on the screen. There's more coming. So you really need to consider all of them and kind of figure out what works best for you and your audience. And they all have their pros and cons. So just to touch on each one really quick, Facebook is still a must for community building, especially with groups and events. Over the years, though, we're seeing that organic reach has dropped. So you really have to be proactive in working at engagement. Instagram is really good for visual storytelling. Things like a patient quote, on top of a photo of them can do really well. The challenge, though, with Instagram is linking out. It's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit difficult to include a link in your post, to get your audience to go out and take action. There are ways to do it through stories. It's just a little bit more challenging than some of the others. X, or formerly known as Twitter, or whatever we're calling it now, that one is super fast moving. It's really good. We find that it's really good for advocacy and policy purposes, but because it is so fast moving, the posts kind of disappear quickly in the feed. So you have to post often, and you have to like stay on top and watch for comments and respond quickly. So that's a fast moving one. And then LinkedIn, this is the professional platform. So it's where you can showcase partnerships. It's sort of like that B2B. You can recruit volunteers. It might not be the best place for emotional storytelling, but it's really, really good for thought leadership, and building trust. And again, like reaching out to potential sponsors, reaching out to potential donors. I actually just heard a story at a meeting I attended where the CEO of a nonprofit, a patient advocacy organization, he was so active on LinkedIn and caught the attention of someone who was passionate about his cause. And it took a while. I think it took maybe a year, he said, but through LinkedIn, or at least getting started on LinkedIn, they built this rapport and built this relationship, and they ended up getting something like $1 million donation that started on LinkedIn. And then there's YouTube. YouTube is growing right now. YouTube is sort of the hot spot, in my opinion. It's super powerful. Videos are hot right now. They really create an emotional connection. But of course, you have to produce those videos, right? So, you could take the time to produce a long form video, or you could just use snippets from some of the content that you already have. But that's just another platform to consider. And then there's Pinterest. Pinterest kind of depends on your audience. It can work if you're sharing resources or self-care tips, but it doesn't fit every cause. So that's just kind of an overview of some of the options. But the key takeaway is don't try to do all of them. Again, identify where your audience is, focus on one or two for now, do them really well, and then you can expand if you have the bad bandwidth to do so. So, next slide, please. I had mentioned that it's rather inexpensive to do social media. For most nonprofits, especially when you're just getting started, it's more of an investment of time rather than money. I'm not gonna lie, it does take time to do social media effectively. Um, but when it comes to cost, there are a lot of free great free tools that you can use. You can use Canva for designing your graphics. You can use Buffer for scheduling your posts in advance. You can use Meta Business Suite, which is Facebook and Instagram, to look into the analytics. They all provide analytics, but these are just some free tools. And honestly, just those three tools alone can help your pages look polished and professional without having to invest, the budget for a designer or a marketing agency. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, do we need to spend money on ads? And my answer is not necessarily, especially if you're just getting started and trying to build awareness. If you're just starting, I would recommend that you focus first on building up your organic presence, reaching out to the people that you already know, sharing consistent posts, telling authentic stories, and engaging with the community that you already have. That's free and it really builds a strong foundation. But that being said, ads can be a really effective accelerator, even on a small budget. You don't need thousands of dollars. I have literally seen on TikTok alone, just for our account at the Autoimmune Association, $10 put behind a single post can triple or double its reach. Honestly, $10. I'm doing it right now. Um, so if you're promoting a fundraising walk or a webinar or some other specific campaign, boosting that post to a very targeted audience does not cost a lot of money and it can make a huge difference. But if you want to see how it can work for you, what I would recommend is taking one post that's already doing well organically, something that people are already like, commenting on, sharing. Um, put put a little bit of money behind it. Put $10, put $25 behind it and boost it and target it to a specific audience and see how that works. These social platforms, the way the algorithms work, they really do reward content that already has engagement. So by putting just a really small dollar amount behind it, you're likely to see even more engagement. So I had mentioned the audience targeting. On Facebook or Instagram, you can choose how to show your ad or your post only to people, say within, and this is what I'm doing right now for an event we have coming up in DC, 25 miles of your city. Like you can target in, that narrowly. Or you can target people who have shown an interest in health or advocacy or chronic illness support. That way you're not wasting money on, reaching people who will never engage and quite fair. So if you're just beginning your social media, I wouldn't feel pressured to spend the money right away, but keep in mind that just a little bit of money can really help amplify your reach once you got the basics down. So, you should think of ads not replacing organic content, but as a boost to get important messages in front of the right people. So now that we've talked about all of that, I want to talk about something really, really important when it comes to social media. And a lot of people forget this, but in my opinion, it's one of the most important things, and that is policies. Um, you really need policies to protect your organization's voice and reputation. I remember in a previous role that I was in, and this is going back at least 15 years, I was working for actually a very large, well-known company. And they did not have a social media presence at the time, which was kind of typical for 15 years ago. And I just remember talking to the owner, and it was a man and a woman, and they consistently said, I'm so afraid of what people are going to say about that, say about us. They're not a bad organization, but there were some things people could have said negatively. And so that was their biggest fear. And I would not be surprised if that's the fear of most people getting started on social media. So what you really need to do is get your policies in place, how you're going to be proactive when that negative thing happens, which hopefully it won't, but you never know. So you really should sit down and establish your policies. Some of the things that you might want to consider are who posts, who can post, who has access to all of your platforms, and who approves the content. Is it just staff? Is it volunteers? Regardless of who's posting, who needs to sign off on the content? And then think about your content. What are the policies for your content? Um, you know, do you post photos of patients? What is the process for getting their written consent? Do you have a process when it comes, or I'm sorry, a policy when it comes to medical advice? You want to think about those things to protect you from privacy and HIPAA issues. And then this isn't necessarily a policy to protect you from negative things, but it should be a policy, part of your policies, which is establishing your tone and voice. So, think of your organization as a person. Who are you as a person? Professional, warm, casual, thought leader. So whatever that personality is, you want to make sure that it's consistent across all platforms. And then, of course, the process for mistakes, because they will happen. Trust me, it's happened to me. A typo, I'm notorious for typos, posting the wrong link, posting a link that doesn't work. So you just need to decide ahead of time what the process is for fixing that. And do you delete it and repost it? Do you correct it? How fast? Do you mention it at all? This might be different for every organization how they handle it, but you need to decide what is right for you. So having these policies in place will save you a lot of headaches down the road. Um, so anyway, we've talked about we've talked about policies. So now let's touch on measurement and figuring out how do you know that this is working? So it really, like everything else, it starts with defining what success looks like for you. And again, this is going to be different from organization to organization and what your goals are. So if your goal is awareness, you're going to look at, are you growing your followers? Are you growing your impressions? If it's engagement, you're going to look at comments and you're going to look at shares. And if it's fundraising, you're going to want to be looking at clicks and conversions. And you're going to want to set goals for all of these and just, keeping an eye on how you're reaching those goals and also, what it is that is helping you, like which posts perform the best to help you reach those goals. And I kind of touched on this before, but the nice thing is that every platform has built-in analytics that you can use for free. So you're not going to every post and counting how many likes they have, because all of that is built into each one of the platforms. So don't get hung up on the daily ups and downs. I would look at the trends monthly or even quarterly, because that's what really matters. Social media is kind of a funny thing where it does ebb and flow. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and in all of these sort of like groups about social media, and people are always posting like, my Facebook isn't performing very well right now. How's yours? And everybody like raises their hand, neither is mine, neither is mine. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It could be what, is going on in the world, what time of year it is. Maybe there's some like algorithm changes going on behind the scenes that you don't have a handle on yet, and haven't been able to tweak your content to accommodate those changes. So just keep in mind that it does ebb and flow. So if you're having a period where you're not getting as much engagement as you usually are, like I said, I would look at it monthly or even quarterly. So now that you know what to measure, I just want to share a couple of practical tools and techniques just to make it a little bit easier for you. So batching content saves a ton of time, and this particular tool comes at a really good time because I was up last night. Well, I spent from about 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. writing our social media content for like the next 3 weeks. That's because I had to do something during the day that I wasn't able to do it, and so I had to do it at night. I don't usually do that, but sitting down and batching it all is really, really effective. That way you're not scrambling every day to come up with something. There are days when, I don't have something scheduled, and then I get pulled aside in meetings and calls and everything before I know it, like I haven't posted anything. So I highly recommend, setting aside a period of time and just batching your content for 2 or 3 weeks. You could go even longer too. Again, it depends on like what your goals are and what you're trying to communicate. Another practical tip that I kind of mentioned is using Canva, using their templates to make your graphics look professional, even if you don't have a designer. As much as you can, schedule posts ahead of time. That way you don't always have to remember every day to post them. For our organization, that doesn't really work. I'm not a fan of scheduling personally because things are moving so fast in my organization that we often have to shift our posts, push things back 2 days, bring something forward another day. Scheduling doesn't work for me, but I do know that for the majority of organizations, they highly rely on scheduling just to make their lives a little bit easier. And then what's really, really important is responding to comments and messages. That's how you're actually going to build your relationships. And then that's what's going to make you a trustworthy resource on social media. And then keep telling stories. That's really what it's about. Media is it's telling. Just real quick one, three, like how you started. Well, assistant, whole bunch at once, and disappearing for weeks at a time. And then third is how you share back to your mission. Perfect social for your organization. Again, I'm with you. Uh, the social media need to be there. Yeah.
Colleen, hopefully the chat should be working now. Sorry for the technological delay, but I think it's been sorted through. And we are now going to move on to our next panelist, Ashley Pruett. She is the Vice President of Community Engagement at the National Scleroderma Foundation. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ashley.
Thanks, Natalie. And Colleen, that was such a great precursor to my presentation. So thank you for hitting on some of those really important things that we have to think about as we get into planning. You can go ahead and go on to the next slide. Before I get started, I need to give a little bit of credit to the real heroes here. We have a great communications team at the foundation. We're absolutely lucky to have them. They professionally executed a plan for us for June, Scleroderma Awareness Month, and without them, not possible. So I just want to make sure we give credit where it's due. Our Scleroderma Awareness Month turned out to be a great community engagement tool for us, as well as spread awareness. So we're really thankful for that. Next slide. And then it's just important for me to say that we could not do it without the support of Boehringer Ingelheim, who supports Scleroderma Awareness Month almost annually. So they've been supporting it for several years now, and we hope to continue that partnership. So next slide. So our theme this year was Stories of Strength, and we have typically taken a theme and played it out throughout the year in lots of different ways. And we sort of kick it off with June, and then we play it into conference and other programming, that we do. What our plan is it's comprehensive. We pick a theme. Our focus is spreading awareness and providing support. So spreading awareness to everyone, providing support to that new person that might find our audience for the first time. And they don't just need to know who we are and where we are, but, how can they learn more about this disease that they've been diagnosed with? So our theme covered, getting involved, sharing stories, attending our Teal Talks, accessing resources, utilizing our online store for awareness, getting light ups. We've got one of our awesome advocates who is the light up champion is on this call right now, and I'm very excited that she's here. And then working with partnerships and influencers, and we're really excited about that because that's something that was new that we did this year. Next slide. So in terms of getting involved, obviously we want to have our community focus on requesting light ups, sharing their own stories, sharing tips and things that they do at home, wearing that teal, participating in things and not in Teal Talks, and not just showing up at the Teal Talk, but engaging with other community members, and in some cases being a part of the facilitation of the event and advocating as well. And so we kicked it off with some infographics and things like that on social media that helped show everything within the month that they could do to get involved. Next slide. So I wanted to kind of dig into a couple of the ways that we asked people to get involved and then how that played out on social media. So Teal Talks are a really amazing thing that we do, and they've kind of evolved over the last 4 years. And what we like to do is sort of take out the educational component from a physician perspective. And so we do a ton of patient education with physicians presenting. This is more patient to patient sharing information. We do them throughout the year, but in June, we do them at a very specific cadence. People know, to come to us on Wednesdays at 2, and we're going to have a session every time. We promote them very heavily on social. And these are a couple of examples of ones that we did that are very relevant. And patient perspectives on digital ulcers, and then daily living aids for one of our people who doesn't have mobility above basically her waist, and how she gets around her home. So we bring people in, we promote it over several weeks. We get as many people as we can there. We make sure we have, sort of an MC or a host that's a patient member of the community, speakers who are patient members of our community, and that we provide resources and an opportunity for them to ask questions and help one another. And so they're very empowering and very meaningful. And so we make sure that they tie back to mission, obviously, first and foremost. And sometimes we'll even share videos with the promotion of these on social. Next slide. And then we also promoted heavily on social media. We did virtual Hill Days, which was a great way to allow some of our patient advocates to really get out there and share their story and talk about scleroderma priorities. And so we were able to promote that on social media as well. And that was very helpful in providing yet another way that people can get involved, since everyone kind of connects in different ways. In terms of the next slide, I mentioned that we also encourage people to submit their stories. And so we ask people to submit stories through a form. And what we do is social media pull quotes, where we pull out maybe a specific thing that they say. It allows people to kind of bait them, and then they connect to our website, which is great because then it drives traffic to the website to learn a lot more about that person and connect them to resources. We get many of these every year, and it's amazing because we get them from patients, we even have them from children with the consent of their parents. We have caregivers. Sometimes a physician will send them in. And so it's a great way to kind of see how this disease affects people. And it's also really great for a new member that's coming to us that finds somebody that maybe is like them or is presenting with scleroderma like them, and they can learn more about their experience and then connect them to resources. Next slide. And also with those connections to resources, we'll share a social media post on, something more specific, something in writing like, here's a tip or a fact about scleroderma, but also another thing that we do is here's a video of how to make things easier for you at home. So we try to be very multimodal in terms of infographics, images of people, videos of actual people or videos of someone doing something, because everybody takes in information differently, and it gives a lot of diversity to what we do. And we find that the more that we mix up that content when we're sharing resources, the more reaction we get to those posts. Next slide. We also have an online store, and that's a really fun thing to promote on social media because for whatever reason, people love their merch. So, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody offline about what's involved in setting up an online store. It's quite a process, but definitely worth it. We encouraged folks all throughout the month of May, kind of like when we were recruiting folks in May on social media to submit stories, their stories of scleroderma. We also encouraged people to shop and get their merch so that they could send us photos, that they could have their merch available at events they were attending and things like that. So I don't have a picture of it here. I intended to include it, but we have dog bandanas too, and that's always a huge hit. People submit photos of their dogs and their cats with bandanas that say National Scleroderma Foundation on them, and they always get a lot of reactions. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to get clothing and awareness out on people without the foundation having to stock it and send it out ourselves. So next slide. And then we have a true expert on the call here today, and maybe in the Q&A we can allow her to share a little information about this. But light-ups are a really, really great way to utilize social media because people get very emotional about it. It's I myself, I have to say, I get emotional when I think about it, but when you work all year and then you see this building lit up in teal that you submitted an application for, you waited 6 months for it, it's like it's overwhelming. And so when we show those collages, we will build collages on social media and we will put them out, especially, so World Scleroderma Day is June 29th. And so we'll get that out on the 29th and the 30th. And it's almost like a summary social series that we post on all of our channels. And people get very excited about it. And it also kind of ignites people for the next year in preparation for, for the next round. And we'll take a light up anytime, I'll tell you that much, but we always try to get them in June and especially on June 29th. And they do perform very well on social media. So that's kind of the multifaceted campaign and all the things that we focused on. One thing I did want to mention, and you'll see it in my stats at the end of the presentation, but something Colleen said was, get really good at a couple of channels. You don't need to be everywhere. So we focus mostly on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we did in the past get involved with Twitter or X, but we found that it wasn't great for our community. And we've kind of decided to hold a little bit on the others. We utilize YouTube specifically for educational content right now. So we do use it quite a lot. But in terms of rolling out our campaigns and stuff, we focus on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So that is where all of the suite of our information was hosted. And then next slide. So this year was our first year where we did a partnership. And she is such a lovely person. It was our first year doing it. She's already dedicated to and actually preparing for next year. She has a very loyal TikTok audience. She was a former college basketball player and college basketball coach, and is battling scleroderma now and unable to coach anymore. And she worked with us to create several videos and help us spread awareness during June. And it very much had an impact on our results. And so next slide, I'm going to show you her TikTok handle. And then Natalie is going to play the first video that she did just to give you an idea of what kind of content we created. And this was her very first video, so it tells you a little bit about scleroderma as well.
All right, bear with me for one moment while I share my screen. All right, almost there.
And while she's looking for the video, I did include all of the videos that she did in my presentation. So if you want to take a look at them, they'll be there for you.
All right, can you all see it?
I'm going rare and curable autoimmune disease. You probably hadn't heard of scleroderma. If you have, I'm very impressed. So you probably don't know what it does. So let me tell you about this disease that has literally hijacked my life. And June is Scleroderma Awareness Month. Last year, I did not do a good job. This month, I've upped my game. I have partnered with the National Scleroderma Foundation to raise awareness for scleroderma. My body produces too much collagen. And you may think, collagen? That's like the good stuff, right? Yeah, it is, but my body doesn't know when to stop. What it does is it tightens my skin, like I can't pinch my skin. It's curled up my hands. I have limited mobility, can't extend my arms. It's affected my appearance, but also it attacks my organs as well. Scleroderma has attacked my lungs, GI system, and heart, but you can see there are many organs and systems they can affect. There are two types of scleroderma, diffuse and limited. The diffuse progresses quicker, involves internal organs earlier, has more severe symptoms, and less desired outcomes. Of course, I'm extra, so that's the one I have. Limited tends to progress slower and only affects skin on parts of the body. There's no treatment for scleroderma, which is a pretty scary thing. There's nothing that is proven to slow the progression or cure it. We basically just treat and manage symptoms. My goal for this month is to raise awareness about scleroderma. We can't find a cure for a disease that no one knows about. So hang out with me this month. Hopefully you learn some stuff, we have fun, and one day eradicate scleroderma. As always, thanks for coming along. Love you. Have a great day. Bye. I have scleroderma.
Thanks, Natalie. I appreciate you sharing that. So that gives you an idea of what we did. And every video that she did sort of led to the next. And so it was some really great content. And as you can see, she has a great number of followers. So it definitely impacted our reach. And we were very lucky to find her and work with her. So next slide. We also have, oh, I'll give her just a second to pull the slides back up. There we go. We also have a celebrity ambassador. Her name is Ashley Barron. She is living with limited scleroderma and also lost her mom to systemic sclerosis, which is a little unique to have that parent-child connection, or so we think. We've had an ongoing partnership with Ashley since 2023. She's fairly active on social media as well. And so she created some video content for us as well, and that she shared on Facebook. She attended our walk in Nashville. That was a walk that we brought back, and that did bring about some good activity on social media as well. Next slide. And as you can see, because we were able to get she shoots at the walk, we had an opportunity for both our influencer for the month and our celebrity ambassador to meet, which was led to some exciting results on some of the photos and things that we shared, especially on Instagram. So the last slide that I have tells you a little bit about the performance. And what I want to say is that from 2024, we had overall improvements in every area. And I think a lot of that is due to Jesse and Brian and the research that they did to make us successful and how we promoted all of this. I just want to call attention to Facebook as a whole. There was a lot of growth, but especially in the link clicks, as you'll see. I mean, it's crazy, 813% from last year. And I know that a lot of that has to do with our partnerships. Instagram views had a huge jump as well. Also, I think very much related to that intentional partnership and content. And for us, LinkedIn is a very challenging, but very important space. And so for us, really any growth above 15% is really phenomenal. So seeing that we were at 39 and 33 was really great for us. So overall, it was really great to take a really great campaign, leverage some partners and influencers, and just watch it soar. And we're already really excited about next year. The one thing I will say, if I had any advice to give, is that finding an influencer is tough. But what I would say is that there's somebody who knows somebody with the disease you represent for every organization. And so where we got really lucky, and where I would always advise, is that our particular influencer that we worked with, she shoots, and that we'll be working with next year, has very clean content, very positive. She absolutely wants to bring light to people living with this disease and share resources. Not everybody out there that has a connection to your disease is going to do that. Doesn't make them bad. It just makes them potentially off brand for you. So you have to, what Colleen was talking about, that voice and that tone, it's so critical. You have to make sure that when you partner with somebody, if they're going to be talking about you on social media, that they're talking in a tone that you can get behind. because otherwise there could be some very negative consequences because social media spreads really fast. And so there is an extremely well-known singer, movie star whose brother has systemic sclerosis, and we would love to work, with them on social media, and their voice on social media is a little different than what kind of is consistent with our brand. Not bad, just different. And so we're trying to figure out, well, how can we share resources with that person without it being like a partnership? And so I think that's something to really think about, and not just to proceed without really engaging your board and different things before you jump into those things, because they can be a little risky. So but I'm happy to answer questions in the Q&A, and or offline at another time. And I'm just appreciate you hearing our story of a successful Scleroderma Awareness Month for 2025. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. That was awesome. We are going to head over to our next speaker is Greg Klimovitz. He's the Director of Development and Communications at the National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasias. All right, Greg, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks. This is one that, first of all, thanks for the invitation. Really enjoy being a part of this network of people who are doing some remarkable work and also leveraging these tools. Greg Klimovitz, as was shared, National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasias. Quick shout out to our team, our executive director, Mary Fate, and then my colleague you'll hear from in a little bit, Andi. The work that we get to do is really remarkable, as is the case for everybody else on this screen. AI for the common good is the topic today that I've been charged with, more or less. And I wanted to just share a little bit, is that when we often think about AI, we think about it this way, as a human robot connection, as if that's artificial intelligence in a nutshell, is a robot. And in many ways, that's what scares people. Is thinking about AI in the forms of replacing people, as if AI exists solely to get rid of us. I think about it a lot in terms of what happened when self-checkouts first started coming into play in the grocery stores. And a lot of folks were hesitant to engage, concerned about use, because what was going to happen to the person who was working as a cashier. And really wanting to make sure to maintain that relationship with the people they knew, with real human connections and whatnot. And are we eliminating jobs and things like that? There's a lot of challenges. But the reality is that AI can be used, and actually should be used, for the common good. And we also need to be reminded that AI is not a new thing. It really isn't. The manifestations of AI is indeed new and constantly changing and shifting and evolving and growing, some for good, some for ill. But the reality is that it's here, that it exists, and it always has. If you want to think about it, even artificial intelligence was very much the way that machines kind of came into play. Even if you want to go far back to when the wheel was invented, to be able to do something in a way that could replace certain things that humans could do. You could even go that far back. But the reality is that AI is here. It's in the air that we breathe. And the question is how are we going to leverage it? Today is not going to be about a history of AI. I'm not an expert on the history of AI. I'm just a constant learner, like a lot of you, in terms of how to use it for our organization and to be mission aligned. So go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the things I want to share is that the reason why there's a lot of pictures here on these slides, and you'll see throughout, is because it's important for me to remember, not just self-promote, that when we're using AI, we're using it for the sake of human connection. How do we free ourselves up to really do the work that we've been invited into, to leverage our skills in human relationships, which AI cannot replace. I'll start here by sharing a quote here from Seth Godin. Talks about getting AI to do your work. That's the first step. Certainly, if you don't, your boss will. That is true, right? The second step, though, is to take the time you've freed up and do the work that AI can't do. That's our hope, is how do we use automations so that we can do the real relational connections with the people in our communities that align with our mission. Three guiding rules that I more or less kind of function underneath of when we talk about this within our teams is AI first should serve your mission and not shift it. It's a tool. It doesn't replace our mission. It's not the goal for us to become experts in AI. Our goal is to continue to be the experts in our mission fulfillment. How does AI serve that? Two, AI should make you a better steward of your donor dollars, not waste them. So much of AI allows us to do things quicker so that we can use our donor dollars that really meets the needs of our people and aligns with our mission that maybe AI can't do, right? Um, I think a lot of donors are thrilled when they find out that we're using some of these automations because it makes them feel like we're using their money wisely. And the last one is that AI should free you to build human connections, not replace the people you serve. And I think that a lot of times that's the most important one, especially with our staff. Um, when it comes to thinking about AI, one of the most important first steps, I think, for a lot of organizations is to do polls and prompts of your team. So if you want to, you can even put this in the chat now. But we did a survey with our staff, and we asked them 3 questions. One, how many of you have used AI in your work? So feel free to put in the chat if you'd like even an answer to that question. The second one was, what's your level of comfortability with AI? Really wanted to get a pulse on our staff and how they really felt about the use of AI. And then the third one was, what's one task you wish took less time so you could focus more on people? When we did that survey, it was really fascinating. First of all, it was good to see that all of our staff recognized that they've used AI in their work, leveled the playing field. Even folks who felt they were not so versed in it, they recognized that they do use it. And I was glad because I was going to have to tell them that anyway. I was going to have to remind them that all of them were using it in some way, shape, or form. But then we started getting to the place where we started to reduce the angst a little bit within our team because we were sharing with them that the goal was not to replace them, but was to set them free to do the things that they really wanted to do, to be able to have more time to build those human connections and to talk to the people that they knew by name. And that's what we are really going to be building on as we move forward. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is where we get to where AI fits in rare disease nonprofit work. One of the individuals I've been working with, and I'll talk about in a moment, with an AI advisory team that we established within the last several months with some thought partners, not only in our organization, but also external to it, shared this quote with me recently. It's from this thought leader in the space who said, you know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. I think that that is such a helpful perspective shift to remind us that it's not that we're using AI to do all the good stuff, all the human connection stuff, but it's about doing the things that none of us really like to do anyway, or to do the things that we're not so great at and do it better and more efficiently in a way that maybe is targeting our audience in a way that they can hear it most effectively. Here are some areas that we have used AI in our work at the NFED. We've used a lot for marketing and communications. This is really kind of the entry place that a lot of people think of first and foremost. Using it for drafting social media copy. My colleague Andi on the screen does this quite a bit. It's especially helpful because it contextualizes your message in a way that tracks with the algorithms. We are constantly fighting those things in terms of visibility, whether it's on our website or whether it's on social media platforms, and even related to current trends. When you use AI for your marketing and communications approach, especially for social media or repurposing blogs and whatnot, it allows us to do so in a way that fights that battle for us. It also can help us have brand consistency in a way that even humans can. And that comes with what we'll talk about later with some prompts. It can also drive some SEO, keeping pace with trends. And like I said, win the algorithm battle. The next piece is donor prospecting and stewardship. I don't know if a lot of not-for-profits really think about it in this way. but you can really use AI and tools like ChatGPT and whatnot to identify giving trends from your donor data. You can plug it into these tools and help us understand real trends related to our giving patterns, so that we can then adjust our strategy in light of that. We can also use it to compile lists of mission-aligned organizations. I'll share a prompt with you that I used in a little bit, but when I used it, it allowed me to come up with about 50 dental organizations within 3 minutes that were mission aligned with our organization based off of particular like kind of a star grade, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars in mission alignment, but also gave us the relevant contact information, how it aligned to our organizational goals, and even some potential strategies for engaging them. It was fascinating, and was able to do that in minutes that then our team was able to discuss and shape a strategy off of. It allows us to also create those effective engagement strategies, like I said, and using those prompts, it then gives us some suggestions for how to get in the door. And that usually, that a lot of times will cost a ton of money if you want to use different firms to help do that prospecting, that AI can actually do pretty simply. It also allows us to plan visits. We use our CRM, our Razor's Edge platform, to pull out some heat maps to show us where our donors are located. And this is actually built into our platform so that when I'm going to a staff meeting in St. Louis, I can start looking at who's going to be in that region and engage them. Or I can figure out who our 3, 4, and 5 star donors are and then set a direction for how I make and plan my travel over the course of a year. It's a huge benefit and saves us a ton of time. And again, is all about stewarding our donors' dollars well, because we don't want to just travel all over the place. We want to use those dollars very effectively and efficiently, because we all know we don't have a ton of them. And then also personalizing thank you messages. Um, I use it all the time to make sure that the type of messaging that I am using is really donor centered. It's very easy for me to forget that. And when I plug my messaging into these tools, it allows me to keep that at the forefront and at the focus. Grant writing is another component that is really, really helpful. It's all about finding grants too. You can plug into these different tools to really locate different grants that align with your mission and your organizational goals. Plug it in, and it will give you all kinds of prospects, potential contact information, giving history of those organizations that can save us so much time. There's all kinds of platforms that are out there that you can spend a ton of money on that are like your grant libraries. And then you don't always get the return on that investment as you're applying for those grants. So instead, you can do it through these tools in a way that's pretty much free. And the reality is most of those libraries are using AI in the back end anyway, and then just charging you for it. So this can really save not-for-profits a ton of money. It also allows you to draft some templates for common grant questions, to ideate slide decks and presentations, and to summarize impact reports for funders, to really plug in what you've been doing and then to create a real quick impact report. We actually even did that for our organization. We used AI to help create the storyboard for our impact report that we gave out to our donors this year, and it was remarkable. And the last one that I have in here is organizational design and strategy. Stop wasting time on SOPs. Just put it into AI and it'll pull one out for you, and then you can customize it. That is a huge time saver. Same with meeting notes and action plans, creating strategic plan outlines. When I first joined this team, one of the things I did and was charged with was developing a development plan for our organization. And so I actually used AI to help create the structure for it, and then took that structure and customized it so that we could create a real and attainable and mission aligned development plan, and was able to do that pretty quickly. And then the last one is about evaluations and assessment of performance for everything. You can put in all kinds of data into AI, and it could spit back out to you some really strong high level notes and ideas and concepts and performance that you can then take back to your board, your staff, your executive directors, as you start to think about how you can move forward. Next slide. Remember that song, All About the Bass, All About the Bass, the treble, right? It's all about the prompts, all about the prompts, no hurry. This is crucial. This is why AI is still a human work, because you need the prompts and we are the ones to develop them. You might be thinking, you missed lorem ipsum in your slide deck. Yes and no. Lorem ipsum is more or less an example of how there's automations and templates. But have you ever realized that lorem ipsum actually means something? And actually, if you use AI to translate it, it means one lives not in measure alone. Great is the elegance of discipline, born from discipline itself. In the course of noble action, life is woven with deep reflection. Walk not toward strife, but toward harmony, shaped by wisdom. It's remarkable. But if I would have just used this lorem ipsum here and just spit out this template of this slide deck to you, it means nothing. You have to do the translation work. You have to put something behind it. And that's where the prompting is vital. We can't just use what AI gives us. We have to do the translation work and we have to prepare it. We have to set the tone. Who are we speaking to? Are we going from English to Spanish, Spanish to English? What is the language connection that's happening? And we are the facilitators of that in using AI, and you can't replace us. Here are four primary things that I think about when it comes to using AI. Context, context, context. The more relevant background you give your prompt and like related to your audience, the mission, tone, and purpose, the more that usable the AI's output will be. And I love this piece here too. Treat your prompt like a detailed creative brief. You can use AI to create that prompt for you. That's what's really, really helpful. Use ChatGPT, say, create a prompt for blah, 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 and then you can fill in the content and then push that back to ChatGPT and it will give you what you want and then you can refine it. Which leads to the second piece, be an active editor. You can't just put it out there. You have to, similar to anybody on your staff giving you something, it's your job to refine, to especially fact check and ensure it aligns with your organization's voice, values, and ethics. Never, ever use the exact first output. It's lazy, but it also will lead to problems. The last one, or the next one here is aim for relational, not just efficient. You really want to nurture the content that you're pulling out from your prompts. And really we want to use it to, as I say here, foster readability and connections. One of the things that I like to do in my prompts is put in there like an 8th grade reading level in a way that really tugs at the heartstring, or use, for example, Mary Fate, who is really warm and relational and loves her people and uses language like, you really have my heart. Like you can put stuff in your prompts that make it sound so deeply relational. And it's a good thing. But we also say a lot of the times is make sure that you're aware when you're using it. Are you okay if someone knew that you were using it when you send that out? And so you want to nurture your message in a way that makes sure that it still connects with people. And I love this last one too, is that AI works for you. Treat it like a staffer. AI is not your boss. If it's not working, refine, 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 refine. Give it clear instructions, deadlines, and feedback, and it will remember those things. If it produces something off track, redirect it. I got in an argument with AI once when I was creating something from our organization. I was like, I didn't give you that number. Where did you get that number from? Why did you put that in there? And it said, you gave it to me. And I said, no, you didn't. Gotten this back and forth. And then it said, yes, you did. It's from here. And it was a website link on our place. And it actually found something that I didn't even realize existed on our website and made what we were putting out better. But it was like that interaction with a staff person. It was really, really helpful. Next slide. These are examples of some prompts that you could use. You could screenshot these if you would like. These are just two that we engaged, impact reporting and drafting. And I use this a little bit like you are a skilled not-for-profit grant writer, and it goes on. And then the report should be, and I gave it how many words, the readability, the tone, structure, all of that. And then it spit out an outline for an impact report. The same thing with corporate sponsor prospecting. That was the prompt that I used that allowed us to really, and it's put it out in an actual Google sheet for me. And then I saved it and I walked through it with my development team. It was incredible. I even did a game with Andy will probably laugh at this, knowing the staff person I was working with on this. I actually did a game. I said, "Can you actually come up with a list of dental organizations that we could prospect for our organization?" And she said, "Sure." And then I did. The next day we talked about it, and she gave me a list about 5 or 6. It was great. She said, "I already worked through these," and I gave her a list of 30. She said, "Where did you come up with these?" I said, "I did them yesterday, right after I asked you in 5 minutes, and then moved on." And it was really fun to have that kind of interaction. And so now she's doing the same thing as we start to do prospecting, and we're talking about those organizations that we can engage. We're doing something similar with our emails. We're going to actually do a test, and we're going to write an email in September without AI. We're just going to do it by hand, old school, or by computer, and we're going to type it out. No AI is going to be used whatsoever. And then in October, we're going to do one 100% driven by AI as we're using our prompts and everything. We're going to see which one performs better based off of our audience. It's not that we're not going to use AI going forward, but we're going to take those learnings to make our next email in November during the end of the year appeal land even better based off of those learnings. So that'll be one of our tests. Next slide. So here's the thing. AI cautions and ethical considerations. We all need to drive. Cars are necessary to travel, especially in our work. So we have to just kind of get over that, right? But we don't always need to drive. Sometimes we carpool. We certainly must obey the rules of the road, the relational network there. We definitely need to make sure we're insured in case something goes wrong, being responsible. We need to get inspected, make sure we're driving things that are safely. You definitely want to lock the doors so we're secure. We don't want to drive without a license. What that means is be trained, right? And push the industry to reduce the carbon footprint. We do that with cars all the time, and we still use them. I live outside of Lancaster. That's really the only region that doesn't use cars. But everybody else uses them. It's just how you use them. So here's a few things to keep in mind. One, AI can be wrong. Make sure you always fact check. Guard your privacy. Never waste or never paste sensitive donor, patient data or information into public tools. So check your settings. I always use, instead of names, even if it's just a first name, I usually take and just do XX instead of the name. And then I go back when I go to send it, I replace it. I also don't usually use the name of a foundation we're doing prospecting with. I'll do the same thing, XX, because I just don't want to use that information in public spaces. Now, sometimes with those organizations, it's good to use the name of the organization because AI can refine your language based off of what it pulls from their website. That can be helpful, but you just want to do due diligence. Avoid over automation. Again, people want that real human presence. Keep trust at the center. If my community knew we use AI, would they feel honored or diminished? That's something to ask over and over again. Sometimes I send emails, believe it or not, old school direct just by my own. I don't use AI at all, but sometimes I know that I have to use AI in order to make this email land well. The legal implications and copyright realities of the content you create is really something that's evolving. So you have to think through, like, if I put this through AI, do I now own the content? Well, it depends on how much you're actually refining it. Most say that if you are refining the content in any way, shape, or form, yes, you will then still own it. If you don't refine it at all, it's actually public domain. And then the last one is really important to me is consider the environmental impact and ethical responsibility. If you're using AI without effective prompts, you're actually being a bad steward of the environment. Some say that every prompt is like a bottle of water. I don't know how true that is, but it is something that I think in my brain all the time is that I almost never use AI without a really well thought out prompt. Because I want to make sure to reduce the amount of energy and waste that I'm kind of causing through the use of AI. I don't always want to drive the car. Sometimes I need to carpool. Next slide. These are just some helpful tips. We did develop an AI advisory team that has helped us along the way. We're definitely creating policies and a strategy right now based off of the feedback we received. We're going to be piloting and iterating how we use AI in small spaces. We really need to walk with staff with care because some folks are anxious about it and they fear being replaced. And that's not what we're doing. As I said, some are cashiers, some prefer self-checkout, some are okay using both. And the last one is steward your resources, time, budget, environment, and relationships. Your organization's dollars are actually your donors' dollars, and AI can help us with that. And then the last slide is the call to action. And so as you think about how to use AI in your space, how can AI increase capacity and protect human connection if used thoughtfully? Think through that. Stop doing the laundry and create art is huge related to AI. And think about what is one area where AI could free up more relational work. And then the last one is who do you need to bring together for this work and when? If you ask these 3 questions or at least engage these 3 points, I think you'll be set up for some really effective approaches for using AI to make sure that you're using it for the common good and leveraging human relationships versus replacing them. So I'm looking forward to having some conversations or responding to any questions. But thanks for being a part of this.
Thank you, Greg. That was awesome. I feel like we're in this new frontier of AI, so that's exciting to hear all of the work that you've done and your guidelines and suggestions. I think will help a lot of us moving forward as we work with AI. I'm now going to turn it over to Greg's colleague at the National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasias, Andi Kezh. She is their communications coordinator. Andi, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, so as she said, I'm Andi Kezh. I'm communications coordinator with Greg at the National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasia. We also go by NFED. And I'm going to run through kind of quickly, I know we're kind of running out of time here, some strategies on social media analytics, specifically the analytics side of social media and how that, relates to nonprofit industry and, patient advocacy organizations. Next slide. So starting off, and this is something that Colleen mentioned early on, really choosing your analytics tools is the first step, and really understanding your social media performance. There's a lot of tools out there. They all pretty much do similar things at different price points. There's a few I have listed here: Loomly, Hootsuite, Sprout Social. There's also Meta Business Suite, which is free, that comes with your Instagram and Facebook accounts, which are all through Meta platform. These platforms can provide a lot of insights and analytics, both organic content that you're posting, as well as any paid advertising that you're doing on social media. Another on here that I didn't put is Google Analytics too, can be great. It's not necessarily social media heavy, but it can show you sort of the traffic sources of where people are coming from to get to your website, and you can filter that out to see, what sort of organic social media and paid social media content is bringing people to your website. So that can be really valuable to see too. Next slide. So another thing I wanted to mention beyond the analytics tools, once you have the tools, you want to actually have the measurements and the goals. These are often called KPIs or key performance indicators, and they're really just the benchmarks of what you're measuring, and then you can create a goal off of that. So some, these are not all of them, but I've listed some valuable metrics like impressions, which is the total number of times your content is actually displayed, whether or not they engage with it or not. Similarly, there's reach, which is the number of unique users who are actually seeing your content. I think on Meta Business Suite, they call impressions views. So there are some variations, but they're generally all the same thing. And I will mention that these metrics are great. They can be inflated because, as it says, impressions are whether people engage with your content or not, even if it's just displayed on their screen, if they're scrolling by it, so it's not necessarily as valuable, I would say, as some of the other metrics that I'll mention in a moment. And that's not to say these metrics are important, but they're sort of they're one piece of the bigger picture, and they might look more inflated and larger than like some of your engagements, like your likes, comments, shares, because this is just content people might be scrolling by. Honestly, it might be an accident. They might not actually be reading the content. It might just be on their algorithm, on their feed. It's still important to have impressions and reach, but I wouldn't say it's your most valuable metric. Next. So I would say more valuable metrics are things like engagements or content interactions, as it's called on Meta Business Suite. These are the actual likes, comments, shares, clicks, the link clicks that you might receive. And these I would say are like the king, right? The king and queen of metrics, because that's really telling you people are interacting with your content. They actually like it. They want to engage with it. They want to click to your link and go to your website or external link. So like these are really what everyone should be striving towards to build. You want to have great impressions and reach, but you really want to be, striving towards really high engagement and link clicks, if that makes sense. Next. And then some other ones as well, follows. This one seems pretty obvious, how many people are following your accounts. And I did mention here that follows, in recent years have become less and less useful due to like the algorithm dominance. Most people's feeds now are full of content from people they don't even follow. Right, so having a follower count is important, and it's important to build that. But don't be disheartened if your follows aren't growing. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not getting a lot of engagement. On our accounts, we get quite a lot of engagement from people that don't follow us. And then you can give them a lot of times on Facebook specifically, we'll get prompts of people that might, interact or comment on a post. We can invite them to follow our page. So, there are lots of opportunities to build a follower list, but it's not the end all be all. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not like having enough of a presence because of algorithms. It can show everything. Visits, the number of times people go to your page. And visits can be a lot higher than your actual followers. People can look at your account and not necessarily follow it. Next. So some best practices I would suggest for those in nonprofit industry and those patient advocacy organizations, really create some good KPIs. Really, you can look up what are the industry standards for number of views, reach, number of followers for, this large of an organization, number of monthly engagements, look things up, look what the industry standards are, and then create benchmarks. I want my KPI, for views each month to be this, or for a specific campaign. If you have like a, awareness month campaign, you should have some KPIs. I want our, engagements to be around this number for this campaign. I want an increase in our viewership from this amount for this campaign, etc. So you want to have some benchmarks. I also recommend creating a dashboard if you haven't already of your analytics. You can look at this monthly, quarterly, annually, and really evaluate, how you're performing, see if there's any blips, see if there are rises and ebbs and flows, and that can really help guide your strategy. Next. And then lastly, the title of my presentation was about analytics strategy, but really it's like this partnership between your content strategy and your analytics strategy. They go together. You can't do one without the other. You can't just post everything, and not look at the analytics. And you can't just look at the analytics and not think about what you're posting. They have to go together. So it's really a two-way street. Really what you should do, and it seems kind of intuitive, right? So you think about, what do I want to post? You try a strategy for content posting. Like, for example, our organization has really tried to strategize more of like human-centered content storytelling, more pictures of people, less heavy graphics with a lot of text. We've recently sort of implemented that strategy, and what we've seen in our analytics is we've got improved engagements, improved link clicks, right? Those are like the king and queens of analytics. So our content strategy is informing our analytics. Our analytics are then informing our content strategy. So we know that's working. We're going to reinforce that. We're going to do more human-centered storytelling. So they go hand in hand. Same thing with recently, we've really tried to implement more interactions with our comments, really, responding to every comment we get across all our platforms. That's really important because it will drive your algorithm. The algorithm rewards posts that have more engagement. So the more comments there are, the more likely people will see your content on their feed. So we're engaging with more comments, and what we're seeing in our analytics is there's better reach, better impressions. People are seeing the content more and more on their feed, even if they're not necessarily following us, or even if they're not engaging, we're still getting impressions and reach of it being displayed. So we know to reinforce that strategy in our content. So they really inform each other, and it's important to have both of these things in mind as you're looking at your analytics, because it really will inform the strategy of what you produce, what you put out, your campaigns for social media, etc. And I think that pretty much does it. It was short and sweet. I want to make sure we have enough time to have some questions at the end too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andi. All right, that was awesome. I felt like I've definitely learned a lot. If other folks have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we will get to them. I have a quick question to start while folks are thinking and adding their questions or their feedback. Are there any trends within the social media and or AI space that any of the panelists foresee in the next 2 or 3 years that nonprofit leaders should be kind of on the lookout for or starting to engage with, so that we don't, come late to the game?
I mean, I can start with one. I would say one of the things I heard actually when I was at the National Health Council leadership gathering is they talked about doing the work of, that's actually what led us to develop our AI advisory team, was to do the work of policy and expert thought partner convening now. Um, because things are changing so rapidly, you don't want to get stuck where not engaging the tools because you don't have a policy, or the flip side, which is kind of where we are right now, which is why we're developing our policy the way we are, is using the tools without a policy, because then it becomes a wild, wild west. So for me, it's hard to say what's out there because the trends are happening so fast. But what I would do is I would survey your team and convene a group of people to help walk through this with you, so that as it changes, you're not just caught like kind of in a way that's stuck or irresponsible.
Yeah, to not have to be responsive, right, but to be prepared. That's helpful.
Exactly. Exactly.
In the chat box, Kelly has a question for the social media gurus. She said, is there a way to track analytics by using a number on TikTok without a platform? I don't know. Do you want to expand on that, Kelly, or does anyone answer?
Yeah, so back a couple years ago, TikTok used to have open analytics where you could just type in a hashtag something and it would pull up how many hits or views that hashtag had on TikTok. It's not an option anymore, and I believe that there are probably platforms that can find that data for you, but I just was not sure if any of you knew if there's a way to find that out now without a platform.
I think there is you would have to have a personal account, obviously, to find that. I don't think TikTok really allows you to look at these things unless you have an account. But you can track trending hashtag usage. There are ways to look at the top trending hashtags within your explore page and things like that. I'm sure there are probably, yeah, someone just said Hootsuite probably is able to track that. We don't have a TikTok platform, so I can't speak to that. But if anybody else has thoughts.
Yeah, we use TikTok. And it's similar to all of the other ones. It varies by platform. Each platform is going to have its own trending hashtags, but yeah, as long as you have an account, they're for most of the platforms, there is like an area that you can go to and see, what's trending, even like by day, by day, by week. But yeah, and then all that gets pulled into Hootsuite or whatever your, analytics platform is as well. But yeah, I'm not sure with TikTok that I don't think you can do anything these days without having an account.
Well, I had used an account when I was looking previously, and I just put in the hashtag, and it just I wasn't able to search hashtags like you can on Instagram. That's why I was
Okay,
wondering.
did you go to the business center, the business part of TikTok?
No.
That's probably where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to say, I have a few friends who will they'll text me TikToks, and I don't have TikTok on my phone. And so I'm always like, send it to me another way. I can't open this. So frustrating.
Because they want
and
you to, they want you to make an account.
I know they do.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I have enough like social media things in my life. That's just personally me, Natalie. We have in the Q&A, we have a comment from Ava Marie Cole. She says, hi, I'm a patient advocate for National Scleroderma Foundation. I handle social media for my chapter. I don't really have a question, but one thing I want to mention is making your post public. It has further outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that, Ava Marie.
Good point.
All right. If anyone has any other questions, chat box or Q&A. Let's see. All right, I think that's it. We've gone a little bit over the time. And so I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for taking time out of your busy schedules to share your knowledge and your wisdom with all of us. And for everyone who's joined, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to learn and engage. And with that, I hope you all have a good almost weekend. Talk to you later. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, everyone. That was awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.